it's really uncanny, the similarities between the collapse of the Roman Empire and the collapse of the apparent collapse, which we don't fully know yet, and the obsession around sexuality and the difference between genders happened before.
Yep, everyone starts butt fucking.
Not quite that.
Okay, here it is, the world's most bullish podcast brought to you by The4Bs, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 trillion man. We have Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and she's here, but she's never here, Mrs. No Show. What's going on?
Good.
It's turning to a bit of a quiet time around Bitcoin. We were just talking about this before we kicked this off. So there's not a lot of Bitcoin stories, but there's a lot of stories which make a solid case for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think we're almost in that holding loop, aren't we? Or that holding pattern where Bitcoin kind of just is the solution. We're just waiting for the real problem to hit.
I just can't see past it, but I also struggle to see it getting into the West. Like I can see it getting into these poorer countries, like South America, Africa, because they got no option because they're piss poor. It's either take on a new monetary standard and slowly switch across, or you can have all your assets and infrastructure claimed by the US or China. Take your pick.
Yeah, well, that assumes the fact you're making a big assumption there, and the fact that America and China and Britain and Europe won't collapse, their money won't inflate to nothing. That's the only reason. I've got a load of stories here where the money essentially has become worthless, that people don't believe in it anymore. Prices have gone too high, so people are just revolting. We're assuming that doesn't happen in Europe and America, and I think it's
we have a place the CBDCs, so it's that's my real fear is that CBDCs get in because we'll save you a CBDC. It's like, but didn't you cause the fire?
Yeah, and I think those CBDCs will be seen as a savior.
Yeah, and so those come in and really ramp up the inflation and debasement of currency, because the people at the top of the chain, they're going to be like, oh, it's 10% more. I'm going to charge 10% more. You're not getting paid more, though. So everyone gets poorer and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So,
yeah, the problem is that I see is like not only the CBDCs, obviously they make the problem worse. It just doesn't change anything, right? It's like there's still the fundamental trust is in the dollar or the euro or the pound. So it might buy them a little, like an extra year or two worth of marketing of belief that, oh no, like fiat did collapse. But I still think it's going to collapse because the monetary supply is hockey sticking up, right? Every time if you see the price of Bitcoin hockey sticking up like that, in reality, it's actually a warning sign to go, we're doing too much too fast and it's about to kind of implode. And we're seeing the monetary supplies right now hockey sticking up. Like this is a clear sign of panic, and it's not sustainable.
But you're saying, oh yeah, it will be a year or two. It's going to be like 50 years stuck on a CBDC if they come in.
Not if they end up worthless.
But they're going to lock. Yeah, but what else are you going to do? Because your money's locked into basically a social credit scheme.
You will lock your money in and it will go to zero. That's what's happened in Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe.
But you got no alternative. Like literally, CBDCs are your life. The country's locked you into me.
You burn it down. What's happened in Sri Lanka? They've run into the president's palace and burn it down and taken it over.
I just, I hope that I'm wrong, but I think it's going to, go really bad. And we're seeing it in plenty of countries. So we've got Sri Lanka, we've got Netherlands, we've got protests joining in with Netherlands from Italy, Germany. We've got cost of livings in Ghana, South America. I think it's in about 4 different countries in South America. There's probably other ones which I don't know about. And there's also Eastern Europe as well. I think there's Albania, Kenya. There's just...
Don't forget Turkey as well.
Oh, we love a bit of Turkey.
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't go down that route because I think we're going to end up in this dystopian road to serfdom.
I think you're playing on the powers of hope, but I think it's just inevitable. It's just a matter of time. We are no different to any of those countries, and it will eventually happen. Albeit it just might be a little bit slower.
It's kind of it'll go from the poorest up, won't it? So people like Sri Lanka, they've gone, actually, we got this as a story. Was that last week? We got it as a story.
Yeah,
so we could kick off that one. So we called it Inflation Weekly, but it's pretty much all of our stories are down this road. So we're saying that Bitcoin's pretty quiet, and it's because we're in a bear market. Everyone's a bit scared of Bitcoin. It's the only thing which is in the news is saying how it's a failure. But I think it's been a failure, 4 or 5 times before. So the bubbles burst. It's Dutch tulips. It's like the bike bubble. It's like the .com bubble, whatever you want to say. But anyway, Sri Lanka. So they've had mass inflation. No one can afford any goods. They haven't got any they can't afford any commodities, so they can't afford petrol. And then it's gone to the fact they're not producing any goods because they weren't using chemical fertilizers. So this is something which I believe the WEF pushed along, and ESG, to make them kind of carbon neutral and all that jazz. And it's resulted in having no crops, no goods, piss poor, no petrol. And the government turned around and said the only people who can have petrol are government services, army and police. And that seemed to be the final straw. When that went, it just turned into massive protest. We've ended up with the Prime Minister and President being overthrown. I think they said, "Oh no, we'll go peacefully in like September, October." And I'm like, "Fuck off!" And so they've gone straight away. But when you go back in time and look around the articles, the stuff from the WEF has been deleted because they bragged back in 2018 that they're going to get Sri Lanka into carbon neutral, ESG and all that. But now the article's been deleted, but don't worry, people have stored it, and there are also search engines which store all those things. So it's firmly there, it's firmly their idea, it's firmly their economics, it's firmly their affiliates, and it's all gone to shit. And it kind of proves the fact that we as a world are not ready for whatever the WEF is suggesting, whether it's right or wrong.
Well, like I've said, I don't think they've co-opted the kind of green energy thing, because it's very weird, right? If you go back 20, 30 years, green energy kind of came out, solar, wind, kind of turbines and water power, hydro, and they were dead against it because obviously the big money is in oil, gas. That's where all the influence was. So all that, and people like Elon Musk had to fight all that and go, no, electric cars and solar does have a place. It does. And he kind of proved the point. And I think, if anything, I think they just thought, you know what, if you can't beat them, just join them. So let's just force everyone onto this green energy well before they're ready. And all it really does is ramp up the price of oil and gas. And that's exactly what's happened, because people, as they switch to green, they're not doing it properly in a nice, careful transition. And in reality, you know, I've heard like really great experts talk about this and go, look, green energy is absolutely viable, but it needs to be in collaboration with fossil fuel energy, because fossil fuels are super reliable. You can set up these coal stations, a nuclear power station, whatever it might be. They are so reliable. Anything that is wind, hydro or solar, it's dependent on the weather. So those things can go off, and you can't have energy go off for days or weeks or even months. So you always need a backup.
Well, they can't store it basically, can they?
No, you can't really store energy at all. Like, we don't have batteries good enough, whether it be oil, gas or whatever. But with oil and gas, you can be super confident. You know how much oil you have, and it's like, this will burn for 50 years. We'll just...
It's the only one is sun, isn't it, that you can rely on if dependent on location.
It's kind of, but even then, you know, clouds. You could have earthquakes,
sandstorm.
Well, in this country more so, but yeah, in other countries it's pretty stable.
But you still can have events, you know, like a monsoon or some kind of sandstorm or typhoon or something, which could
it's
cause...
not 100% reliable.
Yeah, which is why I think it's safer. Dean harps on about this, is the fact that it's great to aim for the green energy, but you need to have some like nuclear, which you can just turn on and cover your energy needs.
Yeah. So what I think is what has been done is like what I think is a good idea has been co-opted by the WEF, and all these social justice warriors have just completely latched onto it and think they're fighting for the good cause. In reality, what they're doing is forcing us down a path which they know fails. They categorically know. And whenever stuff like this fails, people, obviously, I think they're testing it in Sri Lanka a little bit, because obviously this one's gone too far. They've revolted and overthrown the government, but it won't last long, because like you can't have a load of anarchy and just people just running around. Eventually, via force, probably through American troops or European troops, they'll
democracy and freedom.
Yeah, they'll go into their freedom bullets and give them some freedom, and then they'll install some stooge that goes, all right, that was a little bit much, wasn't it? A little bit much too quick. We'll just roll it out a little bit slower so you don't quite realize what we're doing. Because I think they're just, because normally when disasters happen, as we saw with the pandemic and stuff like that, is people look to government for answers. In times in good times, when everyone's just happy, they have money, they can bring up their families, people don't look for government for shit. They look because they don't need anything. In times of hardship, where they don't have enough money, don't have enough food, can't put petrol in the car, they blame their government and go, fix this, fix the price, fix the supply. So governments can kind of come in and go, yeah, we can fix it. We just got to tax you some more. We've probably got to acquire these couple of extra companies. Don't worry, it's all being fixed. And in reality, it's like, you've just privatized or like carved off another 30% of the economy for yourself, haven't you? That's kind of what you did. But in the guise of,
by the way, you probably played into our hands as the way we wanted it anyway.
Yeah, every time these disasters happen, you look at before and after, and government now have more. It's never less.
Yeah, and then I kind of thought this is quite a similarity with Holland. So kind of going down the ESG. So I've seen Sri Lanka in the media, and I've read about it, but they don't really admit fully what happened. It's just that, they can't fuel. They got no crops. They're saying, it's just a disaster, whereas it is ESG, and it's pushed by the WEF. And what's happening in Holland as well is they're trying to take down farming, I think a third of it. So 33%. 50%.
50% of farming they want to take away. They think they've got too much food.
But the thing is, like, what we've been...
and actually, before we go on, like what we just talking about before this, we came on going, there's a shortage of food, which is why some guy you met at the weekend was suggesting that we should be investing in kind of crickets and that different forms of protein. We've got Holland right here stopping 50% of their farming because of too much food.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Someone's talking out their ass, right?
That was my exact point, is like they're claiming it was too much farming, too much nitrogen, but that's not even proven to impact anything what they're doing. If you've got these issues, so this is what I always come back to. You've got too many cows. Well, cows provide food, so what's their use? What about these super yachts, where literally 1 hour in that super yacht is more than an average person's fuel within a year? How about we take out all the super yachts in the world, and that's done? And also those private jets, which we worked out were, times by 50 to 100 times what someone's used for a single holiday. So if you go on holiday twice a year, maybe, these people are using their jets probably 5 times a week over a year. So they're using it 250. So potentially 250 times much pollution as you. What about cutting out those? But instead, we're trying to cut out the amount of cows.
And that's from the people's champ.
Yeah, I saw a great meme about exactly that, where basically there's a picture of $1 billion plane and there's a load of £1 million limousines.
I saw that.
No, I sent it into our group. You didn't see it.
Well,
it's Biden's president didn't mention in the bill.
Yeah, that just sums it up, right? And then, like the headline on that meme was, when you're being told to cut back on your energy and they're flying in on $1 billion planes, driving $1 million cars, maybe you should question this.
Yeah, here we go. Never forget, the world's elite put $1 million limousines on $1 billion jets to fly around the world to tell you to reduce your carbon footprint. It's exactly my point. It's like they all fly on their private jets, they all use their private yachts, yet they're telling you to stop it. And it's just like, you can't eat steak every day. And it's just like, how about you just stop using your fucking private yacht? Yeah.
And what was really like significant in that picture for me was when you look at their cars and how protected they are. The bulletproof glass in that is like freaking a foot thick. You go, they're fucking scared, And this isn't from terrorism or anything like that. They're just scared of a fucking average guy going, I've had enough of you fucking corrupt motherfuckers, because they know what they're doing. They know that loads of people can see what they're doing.
Does Biden know what he's doing?
No, of course he doesn't. He doesn't know what he has for breakfast.
And there's a bulletproof glass to protect him, so he doesn't crash his bike again.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's only so many puppets, so like, he's obviously just a puppet, but it would just be an annoyance for them if he was to die. It's like, oh god, we got to go roll out another one. We've only got so many of these puppets and drones that know what the script is. Like, admittedly, Biden doesn't know what the script is, but he's a name, isn't he?
He's compliant. He's a name. He knows the drill. He'll be okay for now. And so, his face fits with regards to that.
I mean, when people look at Biden, they just think of Obama. So that's his like link, isn't it? It's like, well, Obama was good, so Biden must be, because he was his second in command.
It's interesting though, because I haven't seen too many people really stand up and be like, hold on, this is the president of our nation, the world's most powerfulest man, and he can't even read the auto cue correctly. You know, he can't ride the bike correctly.
Was
he
that
can't do
the auto
anything.
cue? Just to put that into context, so it's not you're not just talking at your ass. He read his auto cue, and I quote, he said, "End of quote."
I think it said repeat the quote.
Repeat the quote, and then repeat the quote. So, Daddy Biden.
It's sad though, isn't it? Like, he's really on the ends. Like, it's not nice one bit.
That's what I mean, though. This is what I think. If we fast forward 10, 20 years, all this is imploded. People will be laughing at us right now, going, how did they not know this was about to fall down? It was complete clown world. They literally had Twitter accounts called Clown World pointing all this out. Yet the majority of people still thought it wasn't going to happen to them. They still held their money in the bank account. They still tied themselves to cities. And then when it did collapse, everyone was like, didn't see it coming, lol.
And what's worse is, in this digital age, everything is recorded. So it's so much easier to look back in history, and it'd be like child's play to be able to see that it was going to fail.
Is it the Sovereign Individual where it talks through all the failures of the different cycles? Yes, it talks through the reign of the church. It talks through the Roman Empire.
Yes,
and every time there's always ridiculous things going on. And a really funny one, which I think someone pointed out on Twitter, was it's really uncanny. The similarities between the collapse of the Roman Empire and the collapse of the apparent collapse, because we don't fully know yet, and the obsession around sexuality and the difference between genders happened before.
Yep, everyone starts butt fucking.
Not quite that.
You're already on it.
No, I'm leaving that to the WEF crowd and the social justice warriors. I'm keeping it like, you know.
It wasn't actually my point, but we'll go with that one because it was a bit funny.
But it is though. It is like you just start worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. Like I don't even go on LinkedIn now because it just triggers me too much. I just can't even be asked.
I love how you say triggered.
They just don't even. They're not even worth my time. I literally sometimes I open it up. The first quote or something will be from someone that I like, and they'll be virtue signaling. And all I want to do is just lambast them. I'm like, no, but I like that person. I haven't spoken to for 3 years. They've clearly changed. They've been polluted. And I'm like, I just can't go on there because I don't want to be just constantly breaking relationships that were previously like good ones.
You've pretty much broken all.
You've only got us left.
I know, pretty much. Yeah.
Everyone refers to you as Mad Gaz, the person who worked in product.
Sweet. Yeah.
You know, Bitcoin, and anybody that is a maxi Bitcoin is part of a cult.
That's the thing. Like us trailblazers, though, we always get seen as mad, and then it all plays out, and we're seen as visionaries. Then
I think
the difference between mad and the visionary is time.
I think we've shown our colour zone in work, so I think everyone's on to Sir Neverlook and myself at the moment.
Yeah, they know not to talk that shit around us, basically, because we'll slap them down with the facts. You know, we've got over 120 hours of the world's most bullish podcast archived, ready to say, this is what the real is, along with
I just can't wait.
reading and everything else we do.
I'm hoping it's not 50 years and it's literally 2 or 3. I just can't wait for the I told you so.
I personally think it's going to be more around in like a decade's time. And I say that based on the adoption of how things are going. So I was listening and watching Nick Batia, the guy from the author from Layered Money, started his own YouTube channel. And he reckons there's around about 200 million Bitcoin users. Now, when we get to 1 billion, that's when obviously adoption's really taken off, and it's following the internet adoption curve and cycle as well. I think where things are going, it'll only be a matter of time.
I think,
but 10 years time.
Kind of going back to the previous story, but also going with your point around, so with Sri Lanka and Bitcoin, it's kind of like, whilst I do love raving on about inflation, because it pisses me off so much. I mean, once your eyes are fully open to everything like this, I say this like an absolute lunatic, but it just annoys the hell out of you. But fundamentally, the governments are taking the piss. And the whole point of Bitcoin is to put controls in place. Well, you want to do ESG? Sounds like a good idea. We should do it. But if we do, we haven't got the money. We can't just make money. This is what you're going to cause. Actually goes, if you fail, the government goes insolvent, and it's who's liable for that debt. Will it be the individuals? Will there have to be new governments and so on? So it's not, there's actually repercussions for bad actions going forwards. And that's the whole principle behind why we're so keen on Bitcoin.
Yeah, but also we're seeing so many of these scenarios playing out, aren't we? Last year, Afghanistan in August, then we saw
that was peaceful though. And the Taliban are people of peace who respect women's rights.
Of course they do.
Biden said so it must be true.
Yeah. We saw Ukraine in February, and now one of the stories, of course, that we're going to be coming on to is China. And last week we covered, what's his name, Peter Schiff, and his bank being taken. So
that sounds like a good lead.
Yeah. So ultimately, there's these examples of inflation and also these bank runs that are happening in the world. And eventually people have got to start opening their eyes and understanding this could happen here. Not to forget the Canadian truckers as well.
It's got to go back to that separation of government and money. How on earth can you give the government a run on money? It's going to cause corruptness. And this is where Bitcoin comes in to fix it.
Yeah, and we've done it before, right? We separated church and state, because church was where all the power was. And in reality, all we really did there was government actually realized the church didn't have much power anymore. Like, people weren't that religious. They were kind of virtue signaling, and threatening people with God didn't really matter. So instead they went, you know what? Church actually isn't where the power is. Money is where the power is. That's where we can control people much better. And we just need to separate now. We did church and state. Now we need to do money and state. Let the state genuinely do the stuff that the free market doesn't want to do, and let them empty the bins and do a little bit of education, a little bit of healthcare. Fine. But then I also want the free market to go, we'll set up schools and we'll set up healthcare, and we'll also compete to empty your bins as well. And if the free market can do it better, then the government steps the fuck down. And in reality, what I think they would be left with is a little bit of a police force and kind of courts to sort out discrepancies where people have gone bad, saying murders, rapes, serious crimes.
What about roads?
It's like very easy to roads can easily be privatized, but maybe who gives a fuck? Like, let them have the roads, but again, let the free market compete and go, do you want to give 50% of your wages to empty the bins and have a road? Or do you want to pay this guy £1,000 one-off payment and you'll do your road?
Yeah,
well, we've talked
a lot cheaper.
It's also like, if the council went, oh, we're not going to collect your bins, so you'd have to pay whatever your council tax is, $1-2 grand a year. You buy yourself a trailer, wouldn't you?
literally, instead of doing that, you just go down, you just make it your routine, or literally, or people just freaking innovate. One guy on your street would buy a truck, and he'd come by and go a fiver every couple of days. I'll take your rubbish, and you pay him.
Yeah, you buy a
You'd
truck.
have your own bin man. Literally, a bin man would come out of your street because it would be profitable for him.
Yeah.
Do we want to go on to the China story? So it's quite a good lead that before we kind of diverted.
Yeah, what's happened in China?
Yeah.
My second favorite, bank runs.
Yeah, so unusually, because Chinese people are quite well behaved because of the authoritarian rule and leadership in the country, people have started to kind of protest and get out in the streets. And they're saying that millions of people can't withdraw their money. And it's been this case since April. And we're only just finding out now. So 3 months later. So naturally, China needs Bitcoin because of all of the properties that we've talked about previously before. But ultimately, it's unconfiscatable.
See, they're saying that it's small banks and it's where they've been breaking laws about investments, which is what's causing the bank runs, so bad debt. And it's also potentially linked to the property crash. So there was that absolute giant company, was it Evergrande or something similar in China?
Yeah, Evergrande was the mortgage company,
which I think's had to be bailed out, and they're saying it's linked to that. But apparently they've been rioting outside of these banks' headquarters, and when they obviously they track them on their phones, and when we've seen them, they pinged them saying they got COVID, so they can't enter certain areas and have to go home.
Yeah.
There you go. Do you know what? I saw another tweet just before we came on. Obviously, China and
that wasn't a tweet. That was CNN. So that's
I'm just talking about a different tweet. Yeah. So obviously, like, the way I see a bank really is a bank isn't much different to BlockFi or Celsius. Like BlockFi and Celsius only do cryptocurrencies and largely Bitcoin, but they're a custodian. You rely on them still sticking around. And obviously, they fell within a couple of years. The banks will fall as well. And when they do fall, the people that get all their money out first are the elite. The people with the most money, they get all the money because they freeze the banks and then they figure out, oh, how are we going to play this? And in reality, by the time the normal people get access to the bank, all the money's gone. And they just go, you've lost it. And they'll either lie to you as to why you lost it, or they'll just go, the bank went bust. Sorry, lol. I've lost my point now. I was going to say something else after that. Anyway, come back.
Whilst you think about that as well, I'll just chip in with the fact that Bitcoin Magazine have stated, news just in, the number of Bitcoin addresses ever created has hit 1 billion. So it's happening. Adoption is there. In addition to this as well, I'd also like to point out that CZ, the CEO of Binance, is being pictured with the President Macron, and he's saying to choose France. I'm not too sure where the relationship is and what that relationship is there. And then also the euro falls equivalent to the US dollar for the first time in 20 years. So what we're seeing is the death of a currency. And that again is probably going to happen, I would say, I'll put a timeline on it, less than 5 years, quite easily.
So you're saying the euro will die within 5 years?
Within 5 years, the euro will die, being replaced by CBDCs within Europe.
Christina Lagarde likes those odds.
Thank you.
What's even worse is the fact that it's fallen, but it's fallen in relation to the dollar. And the dollar is horseshit right now. And if you're more horseshit than the dollar, then
we know, from Putin's stats, he said that they inflated the monetary supply in America by 38%, and then in the EU by roughly 20%. So that isn't just inflating; that's lost confidence in the currency.
Yeah.
And countries are starting to just go, we don't want to accept this now. We want to accept a different form of payment. And I remembered what I was going to say, by the way. So the whole link to like what you said there with, you know, you're protesting against the bank and they'll just ping your digital device and say you got COVID, it's now illegal to be here. On a much lower level, it's this whole smart, Internet of Things type environment. I saw a tweet from one of the Pomp brothers today, and BMW have just brought out a new feature on their heated seats. And if you want heated seats in your BMW in this new version, you have to pay $18 a month or $180 a year. They'll give you a little discount, 2 months for free, to have it. And essentially, they're just going, this is like micro payments and like the Internet of Things that we never wanted. But essentially, like all this has done is enabled them to switch features off in your car. And
you're just going to end up with people getting businesses from hacking cars, aren't you?
Yeah, it's literally like
all the features are in here. I've got sat nav, I've got heated seats, I've got heated windscreen, but I can't use it because I'm not paying that £27 a month. And they'll just go, okay, I'll do it.
New subscription.
Yeah, for £100.
Are they trying to link it to it being an environmental issue at all?
I don't know.
Are they just trying to bleed customers for more money?
Yeah, it's just, I think every single company is trying to get to subscription. So obviously cars are a bit of a one-off payment, aren't they? And I think everyone's copying Tesla a little bit, because Tesla do this to a certain extent, because they did have a software upgrade that kind of, I think it was like for an extra $2,000, your car can suddenly get more performance because they had an upgrade to the software that they could run on the battery. Now, technically, you could have just rolled that out over all the cars for free. And then suddenly everyone, because it was just a software upgrade, they didn't physically do anything. And they just found a better way of running the battery. But Tesla didn't do that. They went $2,000 and you get like 10% more speed and performance out of your car. So a load of people paid. But if you didn't, you essentially sat in a car that could be better, but the guy that owns the company won't give you the code. And that's exactly what's going to, and then normally that never happened, right? Like if you had heated seats, you had heated seats. Like there was no way of them switching them off. It'd be stupid to like have all the tech to heat the seat and then not be able to switch it on. They just wouldn't put the tech in. You'd have to pay extra to have it put in. Now it seems to be they're going to almost kit out every single car to be premium, but that's going to come with a subscription. And unless you pay the premium subscription, which is going to end up way more expensive in the long term, then slowly but surely all your features start getting switched off. And for the average layman, because the thing is, like, I know like hacking cars and all that stuff, but this is quite serious. Like you don't want to probably be messing around with the inner workings of a car. Like who knows if it messes with the brakes or what, or invalidates your insurance. That'll be the thing, actually. A hacked car won't be insured. So no one's going to do it now.
Correct. It's only one company as well, so you'd hope they kind of like don't buy the cars which come with this silly features, because I think it's almost one. I think it's just one. There's only
three car companies in the world anyway. Because like, what is it? Is it Audi that own like 40 car companies or something?
Volkswagen Group.
It's Volkswagen.
Yeah. So I kind of dispute whether it'll go across all, because everyone will just be like, fuck off, you're paying for trims anyway. You pay for heated seats on a certain trim, you pay for sat nav on another trim, and so on. So you have all these added extras. So it's
you'll have your car and you'll be happy. And if you want it, you'll pay for it.
I just don't know. On the car theme as well, like I think it was in Holland, it just got passed, or was it somewhere in Europe? No, actually, I think it's the whole of the EU, when all cars have to be electric by 2035.
Yeah.
And
so we're 2040 in the UK.
That's all right, because electric cars are only 2 or 3 times the price of petrol or diesel. People can afford that. And
the infrastructure is just nowhere near. If you imagine if everyone just suddenly switched to electric and was charging now, there's nowhere near enough places to charge a car. It's just nonsensical to say it.
They say that if all people in your street had a charge point, were charging their cars on the same night, then it'd take down the grid on a single street.
Yeah, but also they're saying that the combustion engine will just no longer be made anyway. So you'll be forced to buy an electric vehicle regardless.
It'll be illegal.
Yeah, mechanics will become a thing of the past. Then you might have the odd subject matter expert in certain cars, but it'll just be ran through technology. We can diagnose exactly what's wrong with your car, but becoming a mechanic will just not be profitable.
because it's just nuts, right? Each like evolution of tech, you didn't need to make the previous version illegal to progress. People will naturally progress to the new tech because it's better. So the second the government just come in and go, no, there's a hard stop here. It's like saying like horses and cars. Like clearly cars were better than horses, but no one made horses illegal on a day. They just went, you can ride a horse now to work if you want. Like knock yourself out. But it's clearly much more cumbersome than drive. So everyone just naturally went to cars, and horses were never made illegal, right? But so now we've got combustion cars. The second someone goes, oh, it's illegal to make a certain type of car, and now suddenly all this ESG stuff comes in where they hated it 20 years ago. Now suddenly they love it, and it's like, I don't believe it. It's sus. Like just let the market decide. Everyone will move to electric cars if they're better. But
I think we've just found our thumbnail, for today's pod. Putin on a horse.
I think
make this illegal.
There's a good meme about this, which I saw, which was one of the charging points for a Tesla, and behind it is a in like a wire cage is like a diesel generator powering the electric, and it's just like, that's the point. Like it is pointless, but once again it goes back to something which I said earlier, is you want to cut out emissions, start with the yachts, start with a private yacht, start with the private jets if you actually want to make the difference, but they don't.
Yeah, well, if you really want to make a difference, they really look like, and everyone knows this, I've said it numerous times on here, where 70% of the emissions are globally are caused by 100 of the top corporations. So that is where all the regulation, all the change is going to affect 70% go after those top 100. They are polluting the planet. And most of them are in China, India, and America.
It sounds like you need to eat your bugs, own nothing, get back in your pod and be happy.
Oh, it just got cancelled. That was the line right there. We just got cancelled. It's good knowing you folks.
Do we want to? We've gone on a bit of a rant and a ramble. Do we want to go back to one of the stories? So,
yeah,
it's another inflation. Zimbabwe. Oh,
yes.
It's such a great case study. I had a read through the article, and I read through a wiki about Zimbabwe about this one. So, Bitcoin magazine. So this is one which Mr. Olin you picked out. Where they're talking about the use of Bitcoin in Zimbabwe. I don't really know the political or government structure in Zimbabwe, but it seems like it's never stopped. So in 2007, hyperinflation started. So it's literally people will spend their money straight away so they can actually afford to buy food. They'll literally queue at the door because the more you hold that money, the less it's worth. And then when you get paid next, you need more money. So that's the whole point about hyperinflation, and money kind of almost like disintegrates in your hands. And there's hyperinflation just seems to be going on. So in its peak in 2008, 2009, did you read or know what percentage is?
I read it and it just blew my mind away, because I was just going to say, I think we really need to add some context into it. So Zimbabwe experienced an estimated 79.6 billion % inflation month over month, 89.76 trillion % year over year in mid-November 2008. And Zimbabwe once again has highest annual measured inflation rate in the world. So if you want to ever think of a case study of where inflation has happened, Zimbabwe is the country to look at.
I like use. I know it's not as extreme, but I like using Argentina because in 100 years, it's pretty much always been in hyperinflation on average. You know, that's my favorite example, but this is just the extreme. So 2009, they stopped printing.
Yeah, it's a bit too silly for its own good, isn't it?
Yeah, and other currencies were used instead, so like dollar, euro, whatever else they could. But then they thought it'd be a good idea 10 years later to reintroduce the RTGS dollar. So they introduced it in June 2019. When do you think they hit hyperinflation again?
A couple of months later.
July. So they reintroduced it in June. They hit hyperinflation in July. And it was 175%. By March 2020, it was above 500%. By July 2020, it's estimated to be at 737%. If there's one argument which you could use for Bitcoin, a Bitcoin standard, so someone can't inflate away your savings, your earnings, this is the single most. Oh, we've learned our lesson. It's 10 years now. Mugabe died, was overthrown in 2017. We'll introduce our own because we're good now. We promise we won't print loads. Lol. Within a month, they start printing ridiculous amounts of money.
Yep. Yeah, of course they do.
But something which I was going to say.
Is there any way out for Zimbabwe, do you think?
Bitcoin.
Is there an answer?
It's literally Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As a country, as like a government and an overall country, no. They are doomed to be very, very like poor and in complete crisis, and basically the top be completely corrupt, and then any form of change will just be filtering off the majority of the money. So the public services that people rely on will be fucked for a long, long time. But as an individual Zimbabwean, you just have to look after yourself. And this is what we say, like when these things collapse, the only thing you can rely on is yourself to protect your family, and then to try and get a small network of people that can also all have a mixture of skills. So if I was in Zimbabwe, that is, and probably is already happening in Zimbabwe now, is that people don't even look to government now. You just have to go convert your wealth into Bitcoin and then create a version of a citadel. And you have lots of citadels, about 100 to 200 people big. And that's a big enough community that can have a variety of skills, but not too big that it gets too corrupt and cumbersome and needs some form of government to run. And you just have these little kind of village type communities, otherwise known as citadels, that you look after your own needs. And it's basic needs. It's just food, healthcare, and bringing up your children and kind of trying to live your lives in peace. But that's the hope. And then the only thing you can do then as a citadel is ride it out and wait for the rest of the world to come onto a Bitcoin standard, and then some form of government or kind of proper change will come. But if anyone is sat there going, oh, I'm just going to do a normal job, put my money in the bank account, you're going to continually be fucked every 5 years as each government comes in, steals your money and goes off again. It's literally just part of an individual.
So since it hyperinflation, I think I read in an article that the GDP should have been, I think, 2 times over what they actually brought in. So the kind of reckless monetary policy affected the wealth of all the individuals. So you're saying it's poor, but it's poor because of government intervention. Like whatever, like, you could say, oh yeah, the government are doing this to help people, which they obviously aren't, but say if they actually are, their intervention's still ruining it. Like, it's been proven centuries upon centuries that government intervention on monetary policy always leads the same way, even if it's for a good purpose. And as a result, RTGS I don't think it's ever really been accepted anywhere else as a currency. It certainly isn't now. So it's fundamentally worthless. They're printing so much of it, and then it's also got no value because no one will trade with them. But one thing which I was going to say is it came up in the Central African Republic is internet issues. So one of the issues in the Central African Republic adopting Bitcoin is around internet. So not many places have, like 3G, 4G coverage because of the nature of the country. So, it hinders how they can do transactions. And that's my kind of point around Zimbabwe, is how do they do transactions with Bitcoin if their mobile networks are probably pants as well?
I don't know, in Africa, the mobile networks is maybe something that is okay, because in the article, it goes on to talk about how they can use Telegram in order to transfer funds across it using EcoCash's new foreign currency wallet.
Okay, so there is a solution. It's just, I think maybe it's just the Central African Republic, then it's just me trying to put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. And but for Zimbabwe, there's an answer.
I think the mobile coverage is probably better than we think, because I think because I know in South Africa and plenty of other African countries, they use mobile phone credit as a currency. That's more reliable.
I think that's like West Africa, where they use mobile phone credit and the signal's all right there. But I think it's, bang in the centre where they can't afford the infrastructure.
Yeah, because the other solution, it's still too high cost probably. It costs, I think, about £100, but you can buy a satellite from Blockstream that you can point and then download the blockchain, and you can then do on-chain and Lightning transactions through it. So if a village or a town could afford a satellite, they could essentially put it together, point it at a satellite, and Blockstream have put a satellite up in the sky that is running Bitcoin. So you can hit it from anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So it's investing it as a community, like a Citadel buying a satellite between you.
Exactly. Yeah. And then because the thing is, like, obviously you want to be independent of your internet connection anyway. You don't really want to be going for an ISP. If the governments go bad, as we know, they'll switch off the internet. It's a great way of starving out the population to become.
They wouldn't do that in a Western country, would they? Oh, they did it in Australia.
Mysterious blackout. It was a maintenance issue. Talking of which, maintenance issues. As I was on my way to London today, there is a planned maintenance of the Nord Stream 1 gas pipe from Russia into Europe, and it's 10 days long. But they're talking about the possibility that the pipe may not be turned back on, and therefore Russia using it as a weapon in order to, essentially get more money out of the West and remind them, I'm in control, bitches.
As we know, it's all bollocks. It's all just watching a WWE show. All I see there is them further just cutting the supply and finding more excuses to say why petrol's so high. That'll probably be their excuse to shove petrol over £2. And they'll go, Putin did it. Like, weren't you doing the maintenance though? Yeah. Why did you switch it off?
Happens every year, this maintenance.
Yeah. Who knows what they're doing? But whenever I see this stuff, it's like, I just think complete bollocks. I just do it. Just fucking do it. The sooner they implode all this, like they don't realize that there is an escape raft and people are doing it. We just need more people to do it. Seriously, like the only thing that's going to enable them to win is if not enough people believe in Bitcoin, and if enough people believe and want to go into this communist world where the government run your money and we all just accept a salary and we all just live in the same kind of copy cutter house, living all the identical lives. If people are okay with that, and worryingly they seemed okay with it during lockdown, then we will go into that.
I also think it could be a good key for them to want to start a war or to try to get involved a little bit more. Because at this moment in stage, we've obviously just been providing weapons, and it could be, well, he's starving us out of it, so we need to do it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It is funny how I don't really see how, like, say us three having a fight, I hand you a gun and you shoot at Dr. 10%. Like, clearly I'm on your side here, right? So now Dr. 10% is completely legitimate to shoot at both of us because I'm clearly helping you, right? That's what we're doing against Russia
exactly.
now. So 100%. I don't see how it's like, no, we haven't fired a bullet. Well, you put guns and bullets in the hands of other guys that then shot at us. Like, you're clearly, like, if I was Russia, it's like, that is an act of war. But for some reason, it doesn't count because the guy that shot is from Ukraine, isn't from America, isn't from Britain. I just go, like, these aren't the real laws. This is WWE. This is not real war. Like, if this was real war and Russia were really this big, fierce force that were just trying to invade, they would already have fired proper bullets at America, at UK, at Europe for defending Ukraine as much as they have. The fact that they haven't, I just go, rules. Bollocks. The whole thing's bollocks.
Surely in war, there's no rules. The rule book just goes out the window.
Yeah, well, kind of. But, like, there's kind of almost like a gentleman's rule, right? So, like I said, like, if I hand you a gun, I'm clearly on your team.
Yeah.
Like, because you're now going to go shooting at Dr. 10% and maybe kill one of his family. And I can't just sit back and go, oh, nothing to do with me, bro. So it clearly was. Like, you wouldn't have had the gun to do that damage if I hadn't have put it in your hand. So I'm clearly just as responsible as you are for that. We are both on the same team. Yeah, in this weird made-up war, that doesn't count. All the blame would be pointed at you, even though I gave you the gun, and you would never have had access to the gun if that wasn't the case. Anyway, let's get off this bollocks.
So do we want to have a quick break on inflation and talk about Bank of England? So this is a story which Sir Neville threw in.
Yeah. I guess, as always, it's, you know why they're trying to bring in some regulation, and it's to be able to tax people. But maybe they're doing this at the wrong time, because no one's making any money in the spare market. Ultimately, the Bank of England, which I walked past today, strangely enough, spat on it as I walked past, and they're trying to bring in the regulation to follow US Congress as well, in terms of the legislation proposed by the US Congress, and effectively charge people as normal. Most people buy Bitcoin, some people buy stable coins that are backed by assets, as it says in the article, and they see this as a taxable event and also a situation. So I think, as it states at the very end of the article, wraps it up really nicely, which is effectively, if crypto has access to mainstream transactions, crypto assets could pose a threat to the wider financial system, hence the Bank of England's strong motivation to gain firm control over the sector, i.e. if we can tax it and make it a deterrent for you to want to play in the crypto markets, then you'll stay in these financial markets of fiat, which benefits us because we've been playing this game for a long time.
So how do they tax more? So currently it's capital gains. That's only, well, I'll say the only tax, the amount of taxes which your money filters through. It's not only, but what other tax would they bring in?
Could be every time you make a trade.
Yeah. Well, it could be. It could just be specific, but yeah, they obviously don't make tax. They don't make any claims to tax or anything. It's just around control and oversight, isn't it? So what they want to do is just make it unusable, make it cumbersome. Because on that last paragraph you read out, if you just replace like the Bank of England and say crypto assets, if you replace those two words with, say, Uber instead of crypto, and then traditional taxi ranks instead of Bank of England, because that's essentially what this is, right? This is the incumbent wants full control over this new incomer.
Yeah.
Well, you would never allow that in any other sector other than money, because very clearly the incumbent is going to regulate and punish the up and coming one to such an extent so they don't take over. So that's why that never happens. You would always have an independent regulator kind of overseeing it to go, look, you need to obey by some safety laws or whatever. But by and large, it's a free market. So if Uber is better than taxis, Ubers win and taxis go to zero. And we're fine with that because it's just the market doing its market thing. It's evolving. Whereas in this instance, it's like the Bank of England, they obviously are very tied to the banks, clearly. And all these crypto exchanges are popping up. They want key oversight and firm control, literally their words, over them. Even the word firm is there. It's almost like, don't get too big, guys. Don't get too big for your boots. Just in case, if you hurt our business too much, just know one sign of our signature on a leg of legislation shuts you down. So make sure you play nice. Don't destroy fiat too fast. Like, we need to be coming along this ride. We want CBDCs to be the front and center and stable coins. And let's push Bitcoin to the back, push the shit coins and NFTs to the top. Let them fucking buy the shit out of that. But then the blue chips are going to be the Bank of England stamped CBDC. We want that on your exchange, zero fees, zero transaction fee, the most attractive coin on your thing. Even pay people to fucking have it because we want this adopted. That's what they're looking at. They're basically positioning themselves So when this sector really explodes, they're in prime position to make sure it plays out because they're controlling all the pieces and it's not just happening to them. They are kind of being the puppet master.
It should
Probably
just
also to slow it down as well.
I was just going to say they should just make like a CBDC Dogecoin or something.
Yeah, if I must admit, if I was inside the government, that is exactly what I would do. I'd go get the founders of Doge and go, look, can you just come and make this CBDC and put like a little Bank of England stamp on it? But yeah, Dogecoin. Yeah.
We'll keep the dog because we can't like that.
Yeah, and the more ones would fucking do it.
A corgi, UK corgi.
Yeah, put a dog on it.
Corgi coin.
Yeah,
you could see it happening, couldn't you? But I think they're trying to do this so that it slows down so that they can catch up because, otherwise Bitcoin and all the other, cryptocurrencies and altcoins, shitcoins just continue to run a mockery. And so they need to do something to slow it down and then they can try to, again, gain control and then catch up to that they can release a CBDC equivalent.
Yeah. So the lesson here for Bitcoin is obviously our main place to get Bitcoin is from an exchange and they're coming after them. So one of the legislation that I think will come in, it won't necessarily be taxing or just be, you can't take custody anymore. You can buy as much Bitcoin as you want. It never leaves the platform. Yeah, we saw that in China, haven't we? China have shut down a load of exchanges, opened up government exchanges, and there's no withdrawal button. So now,
will we try and enforce you to put it back on a government ledger or exchange?
Yeah, that will be the next phase. Yeah, they'll start with you can't take it off, and then that won't be enough. There'll still be too many people that already got it off, and they'll go, well, they'll the playbook is the gold standard, right? You can't have more than an ounce of gold in your home, otherwise it's 10 years in prison. So they'll say something equivalent. They'll say the equivalent of £1,000 worth of Bitcoin, whatever that is at the time. You can't have more than that. Any more than that much Bitcoin, then that's a criminal offense and you can be put in prison. So give us that Bitcoin.
Yeah, hold it on our ledger.
Yeah, and then the global governments of the world will try and gain as much of that 21 million Bitcoin as possible. And then they go, yeah, it's still Bitcoin. But then they'll start printing off the back of it and go, don't worry, all these bits of paper, it says Satoshis on it. And you're like, oh, okay, hold on. If I add all these Satoshis up, it adds up to more than 21 million. Don't worry, we won't do too many. And before you know it, there'll be 100, 200, 300 million Bitcoin. And you're like, they fucked it. Of course they did. That's exactly what they did to gold. Gold is perfectly fine as an asset, perfectly fine to have a bearer's note, which is just a bit of paper that represents the gold until government got hold of it and the bearer's notes got out of control.
So what do you do? So back to that point, what do you do if the government says you've got to put your Bitcoin on an exchange or a government approved ledger?
Don't fall for it.
I mean, how? You're told that you have to with 10 years prison.
Yeah. Well,
you've got to be defiant.
Well, for me, it will be, I would be defiant for as long as I could, but then I would leave and I would find a government that doesn't tell me to do that. And I would leave. Because I am genuinely scared of my government. It's why I pay my taxes. I'm defiant. I fucking hate this government, but I pay my taxes because I fully believe they will come round. A man with a gun will come round, knock on my door, put me in a van and then shove me in a cage for 10 years if I don't pay. So if they did bring out a law in the UK that said holding over £1,000 worth of Bitcoin is a 10-year prison sentence, that's my ticket to leave. I would pick up my family and I would leave. And I go find a government that wouldn't do that to me. That's probably my reason to go to El Salvador would be right there. I'd be off.
Yeah, it's a good shout.
Because otherwise, I wouldn't want to be one of the first guys to be made an example of, right? And I virtually know I probably would be. I am on all their shit lists already. So if they would be going through this list, they're waiting for me to fuck up. And if they went down my list, they're like, fucking hell, we've been waiting to get this guy for ages. Now we can drag him out. We'll put him on TV. Go, this is an example of a Bitcoiner. Look, here's a Nazi tweet. Here's a fucking racist tweet. Here's a homophobic tweet. Like, He's going to prison for 10 years. People will be spitting on me. I'm like, guys, I'm just fucking trying to be left alone. And like the population would turn on me. They'd like love it when I got put in prison for 10 years. I'm like, I'm not being that guy. I'm not being that martyr.
You'd be
I'm
the
fucking
perfect.
off. I'd be a legend on Bitcoin Twitter.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be a legend in Bitcoin Twitter in prison for 10 years. I'm more than happy being completely unknown and fuck off to El Salvador before that happens.
I suppose something being in the UK, like we've got countries like Canada to watch who would be more likely to do this first. Yeah. So you would have the warning signs, like it won't be in the UK first, because we are a little bit more liberal. It'd be some kind of like dictatorship like Canada where it happened primarily.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, well, we've seen it happen in China already. Well, actually, no, not the confiscation, but we've seen the exchanges. So I think the exchanges happen first, then they're going to make it illegal to have ownership.
Yeah, I suppose we'll be watching that actually initially. So wait for China to say you can't have self-custody. So that just makes it from it's a pile of shit to it's actually a threat. The time which they say that you can't have custody of your own Bitcoin, which is one of the principles, it does in fact, what's the correct word for it? It does show that you're on the correct path.
Yeah. And anyone trying to go, oh, they would never do this. It's like they literally did it with gold. Like, no one is pulling this out of their ass and going, it's a conspiracy theory. They literally did it.
It was in the 40s in the US, and it was illegal to own gold or have it outside of a bank until the 70s, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Once they got all the gold, then and they basically devalued it to such an extent that now it's just IOUs, and there was 3 times more IOUs than gold. They realized actually there's no value in gold now. The value is in the paper, and we're the only ones that can print the paper. So yeah, we don't care how much gold you got now because it's not backed by gold anymore. It's just fiat now, and they'll do the same with Bitcoin.
And also they put sanctions on countries who don't print as much as the US.
Yeah,
I mean, really, we could sit down with a whiteboard and map out every scenario as to what is going to happen and the signs to watch out for, which are already happening right now.
We'd have to get our tinfoil hats. That'd be like an episode. That'd be an episode round at Mr. All-In's on it with a big whiteboard. While we're going crazy with our like tinfoil hats on.
Yeah, you said it. But you could just see it now, couldn't you? I mean, we're seeing all of the various different examples happening where you're not allowed to withdraw from an exchange. Exchanges are also being closed down as well because they've over-leveraged themselves. You're seeing more and more regulation being brought in that's detrimental to the consumer, and therefore it's going to hurt them and making it more and more difficult for us to want to play in these markets as well. I mean, I think it was the 2018 run as well, 2017, 2018 run, where banks weren't allowing you to off-ramp into exchanges. So, how do you buy Bitcoin? You use your bank account to fund your exchange. And therefore, that's how you then purchase your Bitcoin. They can easily stop that again. They could easily make a stop and say to every bank, don't allow this transaction to go through.
By that point, that Bitcoin's won, but then again, I suppose it's an issue is it needs mass adoption, and the NPCs won't accept that Bitcoin's won in that situation. So I believe whatever the government spin is.
Yeah. Well, it's fueling terrorism or something like this, or the money's going to Putin somehow, or whoever again is the heel at the time.
Only white supremacists use it.
Yeah. Yeah. But there'll be some reason why they will say, we need to do this for the benefit and the good of us.
It'll be proof of work because everyone's got a hard on for the ESG stuff.
Yeah. I think the climate change one will be big, and if that isn't big enough, then they'll make up another pandemic. Or the war with Russia is beautiful now. They can just leave that bubbling for as long as they want, and the second they want to really implement something big, they just fire the first bomb, and they blow up a European city somewhere, and they go, Russia did it, so now we're fighting back, and now we need all the resources to beat Russia, because by the way, these are a world power and have nukes and stuff. Once they did that, and if the general population believed it, they have unlimited rights yet again to print as much money as they want, because we're essentially in World War III.
We need it. We need it.
And and people would vote for it, and people would be fine with it. I think they tested it with this Ukraine thing, and people didn't half buy it. Everyone changed their profile pictures to Ukraine flags within days because they got told.
Didn't you?
I think you can guess the answer to that.
Is this?
I do have a few Ukrainians in the basement, but that's for a different reason.
Are we on our last story now?
We are indeed, yeah.
We've got the last two.
Oh, two. Have I missed one?
Yeah, the
we got Shitcoin Corner and finally.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I've seen a Shitcoin Corner one. Was it added later today?
Might have been earlier today. If you refresh it, it should be there.
Yeah, I'll just load it up. Love a good Shitcoin Corner.
It's only something big, it's so small. You've probably seen it on Twitter or anything anyway, but essentially, obviously I hate regulators, but this is the chair of the SEC saying that Ethereum passes the Howey test. And if you pass the Howey test, unfortunately for you, that isn't a good thing. That means you are a security. You want to fail the Howey test. So all the Howey test is really is just is what you're doing, is it an investment? Is there some kind of common enterprise? And then is there an expectation of profits? And in this 50-second video that's linked in the tweet, we have the chair of the SEC going through the Howey test, going through those exact points, and then saying Ethereum is yes to all them. It was an investment. It was just a white paper. There was a common enterprise because there was the Ethereum Foundation, a group of like 20, 30 people. And there was an expectation of profits because they issued a token for a price. And the expectation was that token was going to go up in value. So very clearly, Ethereum is a security. And if this gets deemed a security, what essentially it means is that every single purchase of Ethereum since the beginning of time on every exchange was illegal because it was an unregistered security. You have to register as a financial asset to be able to sell it to the general public. And
so is this a death to Ethereum?
I would but think of all the development opportunities on the F chain.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think Ethereum will kill itself. And in reality, whilst I think a lot of Bitcoiners are like saying this is quite a big dunk. However, I've been in this space long enough to see the SEC have called a number of shitcoin securities, and all that happens is they pay a fine and then they carry on.
XRP got called a security, or was it something else?
Yeah, they got called a security. They're fighting that one. So they're still in court and there's to be no resolution to that. So at the SEC, deem them a security. They said they're not and they're fighting that out. But the biggest one, oh my God, it's the one that raised 4 billion.
Ripple?
EOS.
EOS,
It was EOS. So they raised 4 billion. They got found out to be a security. Guess what their fine was for? They raised 4 billion. So what did the SEC fine them for being an unregistered security?
4 million.
Go on, one more guess.
4 bill.
Yeah, it would be lovely if it was 4. It should be higher than 4 billion, right? Because then it would be a punishment.
Yeah.
If you fine them 4 billion, you just gave them back what you got. You want to charge them like 4.5 billion. No, they got fined 25 million.
Wow.
So that's what I can absolutely see happening with Ethereum. So Ethereum is raised way more than 4 billion. They're worth 100 billion or something, right? At least at their peak. I don't know what they're worth now, but it's way more than 4.
Yeah. You never know because it's inflationary, but deflationary.
Yeah. So what will happen is, and at the time, I remember the SEC saying it. The fine that EOS got was one of their record fines for being an unregistered security, being 25 million. So Ethereum, they might have to pay 100 million. It doesn't matter. Like Vitalik can just drop that on a Tuesday back to them. Go, oh, sorry. What forms do you want me to fill out? Here it is. Like for 7 or 8 years. So in reality, I don't think it matters. It's funny seeing it because a load of the shitcoiners are going up in arms, going, what the hell? But yeah, the SEC is just another corrupt government organization, and you can bribe them by paying fines just for them to go away. So it kind of, in these situations, it just proves that like actually being a criminal pays. unless there's prison time and fines that are worth more than the crime, then there's no point.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the Ethereum market cap as we speak. $130 billion.
There you go. And Vitalik's personal wealth is about like 10% of that. So
yeah.
And well, yeah, because 70% was a pre-mine. So 70% of that market cap is
70%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pre-mined.
Yeah. It's the biggest known like secret out there. Every Bitcoiner knows that these 20 guys printed 70% of the supply and gave it to themselves. And like everyone else is fighting over the last 30. But for some reason, no one cares. And all these billionaires are coming in, fighting over the final couple of percent, going, there's a couple of lads that don't even do anything on this now, own like 15% each. And what are you guys doing? You're just making these guys ridiculously rich. Like, what are you doing? But no, for some reason, like no one seems to care.
So never look, do you still own some?
I still own it. It's still there.
You're not going to cash out before it goes to zero?
I'd much rather it go to zero than cash out.
That's what you don't cash out, you convert it to sats.
But I could just convert it to sats, yeah.
You're about
you're not tempted to do that now?
85% down from all-time highs now.
No,
but Bitcoin's down significantly, so you get cheap sats.
Yeah. But yeah.
I think it's relative, isn't it?
But it's down more than Bitcoin. So if you'd have converted, if I think like it would have been a good trade to actually hold Ethereum during the bull market and then convert at some point during all-time high, because then Ethereum went up more, but then Bitcoin went down less. So it would have been a perfect trade. But obviously, the longer you hold a shitcoin, typically you end up you lose it all in the end.
Yeah. And to be fair as well, I think there was a chart that I saw that it doesn't, or there's never been a shitcoin that's out there that has gone above its all-time high. So it will need to be a miracle for it to get back up to there in those prices once again.
Yeah. Whereas I think like most people, like, do you think Bitcoin's ever going to go above 69K? Like nearly definitely.
Absolutely.
Like 100% going to happen. Whereas Ethereum going to go back over 4,000? Probably never. So straight away it's gone, well, straight away there. It's a no nonsense trade, isn't it? You just convert your ETH into Bitcoin. Like why would you ever leave it there?
Yeah.
Instead, you're just going to end up waiting till it goes to a tenner and go, fine, like the final little scraps of change, throw it over into sats. You're just going to be like sad that day, like converting, like getting 2 sats for your money. Like, fuck, I could have got like about a quarter of a Bitcoin at some point. Now I'm getting 2 sats.
You've got the perfect t-shirt on for it as well. Nike, just do it.
Just do it. You won't be happy until I've just done it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
That one Ethereum is just like weighing you down. Like it gives you hopium that like sometimes, you know, that it might work out, and it's not going to work out.
Yeah, get your sats. Anyway, I think we've actually got 2 more stories. So we've got the catch-all on inflation, but I think we've talked about most of these, but I think it's worth just relaying the countries which are having riots. So we got Sri Lanka, we covered Netherlands, we covered Albania, Kenya, Argentina, South Africa, Ghana, Ecuador, Peru, Panama, China, Germany, but they seem to be just backing the Netherlands farmers because they don't want this idiotic cut in farming. But one thing which I'll say is it's almost like a giant conspiracy theory. Like it's just turning into something unbelievable.
Like I said at the beginning, when you watch all these dominoes fall and you don't think these smaller dominoes are going to hit into the bigger ones, then you're relying on some hell of a hopium to think that the domino, the domino that you're sat on, you think it's glued to the floor, and it ain't. It's a bigger one, but all these little ones falling, they gain momentum, and we've all seen that. Like the picture of like a tiny domino falling. and eventually this big slab of a domino falls because all the little ones, they gain momentum as they go. That's what's happening as economies fall. It's a little bit like an ecosystem, right? When like a certain breed of fish dies, then the insects will die, the birds will die, and eventually the predators die, the cats will die, the wolves will die. And you go, oh, how did the wolf die? And you go, well, we should have seen it coming, because once this little fly died, then everything was just a chain reaction. So all these countries, like, we don't think they're important, but we get lots of natural resources from these players. Like, not manufacturing happens there. All this stuff will not be happening in all those countries you just listed. Whatever they produce, they won't be right now. And we don't think that matters, but it does. And it will hit us. And we can't afford for that stuff to hit us right now. And so when it does, all these dominoes start to fall. And before you know it, oh shit, we've got no tires for the car. I was listening to Elon Musk actually on a podcast. And it was fascinating. Everyone was having a go at him for not having the Cybertruck out yet. And also, I think his super kind of car. And he was just talking through the raw minerals and going, these countries are either rioting or in lockdown. And he has 95% of the car all done, but it's not a car until these final pieces are kind of put into it. And the natural resources and certain parts of cars just aren't turning up. I think he even said that it was rubber. It was like tires. Like the whole car was built in some instance. He didn't have tires to put on the car. Because obviously when you're making hundreds of thousands of cars, that's a lot of fucking tires, right? And there's kind of, most of the rubber comes from like 2 countries or something. And 2 of them, like one was locked down and the other one was rioting. So he went, and he's like, this isn't just our problem. This will be a global problem. No one has any tires. And like rubber doesn't just go in tires either. It goes like all the pipes that are in just about every electronic thing. Like there will be no rubber pipes. There will be no like, so yeah, I think these are the canaries in the coal mine, and we either listen to them and make your preparations. Number 1 should be buy Bitcoin. Number 2 should be get your own food and water supply. Like seriously.
I mean, again, just looking through those countries, it's amazing to see. It's probably, again, worthwhile saying Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, China, Panama, Peru, Ecuador, Ghana, South Africa, Argentina, Albania, Sri Lanka. This is happening all over the world. Rioting is beginning. Inflation is happening. The protests around the world.
It's a good job it's only transitory.
And yeah, so our final story, it's that kind of like a little bit of a kind of happy and sad one. So there's a guy that I don't think he has a lot of Bitcoin, but I think he's only got a couple, but he sold a Bitcoin a couple of years ago, but probably for one of the best reasons that you can probably ever sell a Bitcoin for. Unfortunately, it was seemingly at the bottom in 2020. So he may have sold right down during that COVID dip. But he was doing that at the time to pay for IVF for him and his wife. And they had a baby boy. So they've now kind of got a baby boy instead of a Bitcoin. And he says in this post here, he's working on making his baby boy also a whole coiner. So he's stacking sats for his baby boy. But thought it was a nice kind of lighthearted, nice story to end on, because it's if you're going to sell your Bitcoin, this is a hell of a good reason to do so.
Absolutely.
Do you reckon maybe he sold his son on the black market, he'd get his Bitcoin back?
I don't know. I think there's some billionaire islands that you could get a good price for your kid on, yeah. But I'm not sure they give you Bitcoin though, but probably just pay you in dirty dollars.
I mean, we all know, and you will come to find out, that kids are expensive, but this kid could really cost him an arm and a leg. So, and we'll always be able to go onto the Bitcoin ledger and on chain to see it as well. Yeah,
this could end up being like the Bitcoin pizza guy, right? This could be the Bitcoin baby guy. Like
exactly.
He paid a Bitcoin for a baby. It's like when this kid grows up, he's probably undoubtedly going to be a Bitcoiner. It's like, you're the like most expensive human on the planet. You cost a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're worth like 400 million now. Like your dad must be fucking like, he could have yachts, his own private island. Instead, he's just got you, a drain on his resources.
Exactly. When he doesn't want to put his pants on and is there with his tackle out, it's just gonna think, fuck's sake. Could have
But the good thing is though, he knows it, right? Even in the post, he says
he knows it.
He knows this kid's going to cost him millions in the near future, but these are life-changing decisions, right? So he obviously couldn't have a kid before. IVF worked for him. So, you know, fair play. I'm sure he's very happy with that. It's a different kind of investment, isn't it? It's not a financial investment, children, but it's a life investment. So,
yeah,
you know, fair play.
All good nonetheless. Well, that has been episode 61, brought to you by the world's most bullish podcast, The 4Bs, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Never Look, aka the Excellence of Execution, and she was here, but she was never here. Gonna show up, didn't show up. Another one in the can, Mrs. No Show. Peace out.